All right, West Virginia fans, it's here. It is no more week 0. We're officially at week 1. I'm going to change it up a little bit. Instead of doing a West Virginia only story, there's a lot of national storylines I want to get to and break down. To do that, I'm bringing in a good friend who loves college football as much as I do, Steve Holcren. Steve, say what's up to the people.
JerseyEer, it's awesome to be on the show. Been following you, Johnny, for quite some time. Want to first just congratulate you on the tremendous amount of success that you have had with this show early on. I know you put a lot of work into it. I know this is something you hold close to your heart. So I'm very blessed and thankful that you wanted me to have, to be on your show today.
Appreciate it, man. It's been a fun ride. We started about 10 weeks ago and have gained over 300 subscribers. So with that being said, if you are a Mountaineer fan or really even a college football fan, please remember to like and subscribe to the show. Like Steve mentioned, we put a lot of content out here and we want to grow this show, especially as football season gets underway. With that being said, why don't we talk some football, Steve? What do you say?
Nothing I love more this time of year.
Well, I was going to say, that was my first question to you. Do you think this is the best time of the year or what?
Oh man, I think it gets a little better as we head into a little colder weather. We never really know what we have as we enter the college football season. Rankings don't really mean too much. I mean, I guess it's hard to say that with what we have coming up next week in week 1, which I know we're going to get into. But, cold weather, fire pits in football there's nothing, absolutely nothing better.
Nothing better. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through each conference, talk about the different storylines in each power conference. I'll get Steve's take. I'll give my take. We'll react to it, and we'll get you ready before week 1 starts, which is coming up on Thursday. Let's start with the Big 12 since this is a West Virginia show after all. Steve, how do you feel that the Big 12 is I would say, the most wide open conference? Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no clear favorite right now. I think for someone like you, West Virginia is having a fantastic opportunity to make some high leaps this year. After what we saw yesterday with Iowa State and Kansas State, no real clear favorite coming out of there. I thought Kansas State would have been brought much more to the table with their quarterback play and really put themselves out there. Arizona State may be a team to obviously, keep our eye on, but there's no clear cut like we're seeing in the Big Ten and in the SEC and the ACC with that.
Absolutely. We're actually going to get to that. Avery Johnson yesterday caught a lot of questions about him. He's been a highly touted recruit, but has been very hot and cold. And when he is cold, his team struggles. So we'll get to that. Let's talk about this, right? So this is the retread hires. 2 of them in the conference. Scott Frost goes back to UCF after not a very good tenure at Nebraska. And then Rich Rodriguez comes home after 17 years. So Rich Rod has been all over the country. He had stints at Michigan, Arizona, did well at Jacksonville State, and now he returns home to where he had a lot of success at West Virginia. Let's start with the West Virginia one, Steve. What are your thoughts about West Virginia bringing back Rich Rodriguez?
Look, I've always thought Rich Rodriguez was an amazing coach. I really got heavily into college football probably in those 04, 05, 06 years, watching West Virginia Mountaineers, heavily with the Pat White team, which is probably one of my favorite college football teams of all time. So I always thought Rich Rodriguez was an amazing coach. I think he didn't get the best hand in time at Michigan. I think if he would have been allowed a couple more years, I'm confident he would have done a lot better at Michigan, but he's been successful everywhere he's gone. It may take him a little time to get his foundation in place, but I think if we're looking at somebody from a retread, rehire, I think Rich Rod is going to have a ton of success, and he's going to have the Mountaineers up there in that top 10 conversation year in and year out.
That's what Mountaineer fans want to hear. It's been a long time since we've been in that conversation. Kurt Herbstreit actually came out with his preseason Herbie Awards, and he had the best hire as Rich Rodriguez, so that's great. Scott Frost, someone that was not at UCF as long as Rich Rod was at West Virginia, but as you can see in 2017, had that 13-0 season, went to Nebraska and struggled, which was his alma mater, but now he finds himself back at UCF. What are your thoughts on Frost coming back to UCF?
I'm not a huge Scott Frost guy, to be honest with you, Johnny. Not a long tenured track of success. He had the success with that 13-0 season, and he jumped ship as he should have when that opportunity came at his alma mater. And it was proven year in and year out he could not win at Nebraska, which, the past couple of years, their NIL money's coming up. They have a lot of people in the state of Nebraska that want to win and that were supporting him. I feel like him going back to UCF is a lot different than Rich Rod coming back to a place where he was successful at, because Rich Rod did it for a long time at West Virginia and came back there to a community that really embraced him. I don't see that happening with Frost at UCF. Yes, the expectations may not be as high at a school like UCF, which may be where he's more comfortable, where the expectations are extremely high at a school like Nebraska. Now, I wish him nothing but the best. I'd love to see a program like UCF back on top. It's always fun when you have one of those schools competing. But if I had to take a guess, I would call it a 3 and done at UCF again.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think the biggest thing is time. And if you look at the 19 years that Rich Rod's been coaching compared to Scott Frost's 8, Scott Frost has a losing record. Rich Rod has, a lot more wins. So I think as a West Virginia fan, maybe I'm biased, but I think that West Virginia fans, we need this. We've been very stale. We've lost our swagger. It's been really hard to talk about the West Virginia Mountaineers because we have taken a step back. So I can tell you as a West Virginia fan, we are excited for Saturday. We're excited to see what we do this season. Let's talk about what we kind of got to earlier, how it's the most wide open league in the conference. Truly anyone can win. There is no blue blood. There is no power. If you had to put like a favorite, though, if you had to say the team that you trust the most, which team would you say?
Oh man, that's the $1 million question here. I mean, I could obviously say Colorado to get the clickbaits, but I don't believe in Dion. I know people don't want to hear that, but I don't think Colorado is going to be at the top. We saw what Kansas State had to offer, and you mentioned it earlier. When Johnson's not playing well, Kansas State's out of the question. I do like Arizona State. I love what they're able to bring. I think they're a competitive team. And seeing what Iowa State had yesterday, they're a gritty team, man. But quarterback play is going to be the question in Iowa State, and it's going to be the question everywhere, essentially. I'd like to see your Mountaineers, cause a little trouble, upset a couple teams. I don't see you guys winning the conference in year one, and I think that's okay. I think a positive step forward for you guys is just being competitive again and winning some big games. I would have to say my favorite, if you're holding the gun up, is Arizona State this year.
Yeah, you make really good points. I think as a West Virginia fan, Las Vegas only predicts us to get like 5 wins. I think we're going to be better than that. I'm hoping, we at least finish with a winning record. And I want to see glimmers of hope from West Virginia. I want to see us beat a team that we're not supposed to. I want people around the country to be like, wow, look at that team. Watch out for them and build some positive momentum. The team I'm really looking at is Texas Tech. They had the second rated transfer portal class in the entire country behind LSU. They have a lot of oil money out there in Texas, and they're not afraid to spend it right now. So Texas Tech is my pick. I think you have to also pay attention to Utah. They have a new quarterback coming in from New Mexico. Devin Dampier is pretty good. They have a good offensive line. Like you said, Rocco Becht, whose dad played at West Virginia, is also a solid person. But it's anyone's guess. It should be a fun league to watch this year. Let's change it up and let's go to the ACC. Another fun league to talk about this year. Let's talk about this first one. Steve, if I would have told you last season that Bill Belichick would have been the coach at UNC, what would you have said to me?
Absolutely no shot. Bill Belichick is even entering the NCAA and the college football world. I thought for sure Belichick would be, on Sundays, the most decorated NFL coach, if not ever. We can have that conversation about Brady and him any day of the week. But at the end of the day, I mean, Bill Belichick's the most successful coach in NFL history, and to see him now on a sideline, it's going to be interesting to see what he can pull together. I see him kind of sitting in more of a GM position with UNC. An 18, 19, and 20-year-old kid is very different. And my biggest question is, does Bill Belichick have the respect of the locker room? Are kids going to buy in to the Belichick way, quote unquote, the Patriot way? He's a major question mark with what he can potentially bring. Is he's trying to set things up so his son can take over there in the future? Is he planning on being there long term? Are UNC fans going to allow the sideshow that he has going on to distract what is actually going on the field? I mean, Bill Belichick's story has changed so many times over the last 18 months. To see him sitting in in UNC, it's kind of an interesting story to be told. But at the end of the day, if they're winning on the field, I don't think anybody's going to care.
Yeah, I think you make really good points. It's kind of weird to sound like someone wouldn't buy into someone that's won 6 Super Bowls, but it is a huge question mark. UNC is going to be a team that's fascinating to watch. Probably that's why they are on prime time on Monday night versus TCU, which is a great game. The ACC and the Big 12 are going to be fighting for that third conference spot, and that's going to be a game that gets a lot of eyeballs. But I'll tell you what, looking at their schedule, it's pretty doable. They only have one ranked team on there as of right now, which is Clemson. Stanford really looked like they struggled yesterday versus Hawaii. A lot of question marks in the ACC. I think with the schedule alone, I think he might have a chance to set up and win some games this year. But I think that's one of the top storylines in the ACC this year. Let's move on to probably my favorite storyline of the ACC, and that's Carson Beck replacing Cam Ward. Cam Ward, who now plays for your Tennessee Titans, had an amazing season. Miami really blew their chance last year. They had a chance to go to the college football playoff and represent the ACC, but their defense couldn't stop anybody, and they ultimately fell flat. What are your thoughts on Beck replacing Cam Ward and Miami having success this year?
I think Beck's a fantastic quarterback. I think if he doesn't get hurt last year, I think that was in the SEC championship game. I think they really make a strong run. I think replacing the number 1 pick in the NFL draft is always going to be hard to do. I personally didn't think Miami was that good last year. Obviously, you mentioned their defense, how bad they were, but I think Cam Ward made up for a lot of missing talent on the offensive side of the ball. So with Carson Beck coming in, can he play to the level that Cam Ward did? Can he have a better supporting cast than Cam Ward did? If that's the case, Miami can be back in there in the conversation. People want to see the U win. Everybody wants to see the U win. You don't even have to be a fan of Miami. You can hate Miami, but college football is better when the U is in the game. So with him coming there, he's got a fantastic story behind him, being a starting quarterback for multiple years at Georgia, winning a lot of football games, then transferring over from being a starting quarterback in the SEC. I think it's going to be a fantastic story. It's just, can he put up enough points to, help that cast around him?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Beck is there was a few times last year where he had inconsistent play, especially in big games. If you look at the graphic, Alabama, 3 touchdowns but threw 3 interceptions. In Texas, he was not very good. 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, only 175 yards. Texas's defense, though, was a top 3 defense in the country last year in all categories. Ole Miss did not play very well either, had under 200 yards passing with an interception. So he's going to have to show up in the big game. One thing that's going to help him this year, though, is this schedule, Steve. Look at this. They don't play a single game outside of the state of Florida until November. So whoever made that schedule for them deserves a raise.
And they're not going too far either. They're going to SMU right after that. So that's a fantastic schedule. It's going to be great to see them go up against Notre Dame, though. I'd love to see the U shake the Irish up a little bit, and I think that's definitely a possibility. Prime time on the 31st there. But they really have a very favorable schedule, for the U.
And they don't play Clemson, which is the next team that we want to talk about. I'm sure and that's my pick, Clemson versus Miami in the ACC championship. Let's talk about Clemson. There's a lot of hype around this team. They haven't been the same Clemson as they're accustomed to. Didn't really buy into the transfer portal, but now it seems like things are really setting up for Clemson this year. What are your thoughts on the Tigers?
Look, they have the number 1 position. They have the quarterback. Not only can Klubnik sling it, he can also run the ball. Last year, he had almost 500 yards rushing, and they just didn't have enough firepower in the playoffs to make things move. But he is the right guy. You build around him, and that's the one position you need, not in all of football, but in college football. It makes a massive difference to have a dual threat guy who can sling the ball all over the field. I think he's going to take that step forward. I think they're going to win the ACC. I think they're going to win a game in the college football playoff too. And I think the Dabo haters are going to start to say, okay, Dabo didn't want to buy into the portal. Dabo did it his way. Well, you know what? He did it his way last time and he won a national championship. So maybe we trust this guy. Maybe we give him his flowers. We let him do what he wants to do because he's brought Clemson there. He's got his guy under center the same way he did when he had Watson, same way he did when we had Trevor Lawrence. Like, he has a recipe for success. Yeah, it took a couple different turns right now, but I think with this guy under center, I think they can win a lot of games.
Yeah, Cade Klubnik, 36 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. 3,600 yards passing last year. They also have studs on defense. TJ Parker off the edge. Sammy Brown, who is a really good linebacker, true sophomore player. They made the CFP last year. They got hot late. I like their chances. They have a really tough non-conference schedule with LSU opening up the season and then South Carolina at the end. But you can win the ACC, and those losses wouldn't even matter if they have any losses. I can't wait to watch them and LSU tango on Saturday night. That's going to be must-watch television. Should be a fun year for Clemson. Let's get to the SEC. Let's talk about the two power conferences now. Let's talk about Arch Manning, someone that has put up really good stats. Had 13 total touchdowns last year, 9 in the air. Had a perfect 24/7 recruit profile. They start off against Ohio State. What are your thoughts on Texas and Arch Manning?
I mean, it's a Manning with swagger. That's exactly what it is. He's athletic. He can do more than his uncles could do on the ground. He seems to be a true leader, and I think that's just the Manning way. You're raised in that environment. Week 1 is going to tell you everything you need to know about Arch Manning. I don't think he's going to be somebody that's going to shy away when those lights are on against Ohio State and going into Ohio State at that. I also don't think that's the worst environment for him to open up. I don't think Columbus is that loud of a stadium. I know I'll get a lot of kickback from that, but I think he could go into worse places. There's a lot of talent. There's a Lamborghini over there with Ohio State, like they say. Just drive the Lamborghini, don't crash it. But I think Arch Manning is going to win a lot of football games. I don't see Texas going undefeated. They have to play a lot of good talent. They have to go to Florida. They have to play Oklahoma again. I mean, they have Georgia. That schedule is tough. If Arch Manning can make that way out of that, where they're playing in the SEC championship and he's healthy at the end of the year, they'll be in the conversation. Is he better than Quinn Ewers? He didn't start over him, so that's the question. Quinn Ewers was, Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, 6th, 7th round pick in the NFL draft.
Yep.
So, there was a lot of comments came out that say, if he's that good, why wasn't he starting over a 6th or 7th round pick in the NFL draft? Very, very good question. Or were they just letting him develop? He's definitely going to be the number 1 or 2 storyline of this year, watching him develop throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Arch Manning was my pick actually to win the Heisman. So we had a show previewing the West Virginia Mountaineers the other day, and we just did at the end just some predictions. And I said, he's going to have a leg up on people because of his last name. So, and especially if he balls out that first game, he's going to be the leader right away. And if he can continue that momentum, he has a chance, as good a chance as anyone, to win the Heisman. Texas plays really good defense, so he doesn't even have to be outstanding for them to win. Like I said, they were top 3 last year in scoring and total defense last year. Things set up really nicely for them. It's going to be a fun game, and it's going to be a fun storyline to watch this year.
He definitely is up there for that Heisman, Johnny. But there's a kid in Florida and a kid in South Carolina that play the same position that may have something to say about that, in my opinion.
Yeah, the DJ Lagway and Sellers, absolutely. Let's talk about some big shoes to fill. Kalen DeBoer, year 2, replacing a legend. Probably the toughest coaching job you can step into, right? Replacing someone that's won that many national championships and had that much success. What do you think about Alabama? What do you think about Kalen DeBoer? What do you think?
I mean, that's the GOAT right there. That Nick Saban, he's the greatest coach in college football history. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No arguments to be had. Nick ran a tight ship there in Alabama. He turned that thing around in, maybe 2008, and it's that thing's been going smooth. That's the worst job to have to take. You can't replicate that success. Kalen DeBoer did a fantastic job at Washington before, but it showed last year they were not the same Alabama football team. They were not as disciplined. A lot of the stuff that you saw on the sidelines, the guys dancing around, that doesn't happen under Nick. It doesn't. Yes, I get DeBoer is a different coach, and he's going to do things his way. But when you lose the locker room and you don't have that type of respect, which I felt he didn't have last year, which is why Alabama wasn't the best team last year in the SEC, I felt he lost that locker room. He didn't have it. I don't see DeBoer being there long. I feel
last year
that.
Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead. Finish your point.
No, I just don't see him being there long term. And I don't think it's because he's not a good coach. I just think the people in Alabama are used to things being done a certain way because they've been spoiled, and I think it's hard to replicate that.
Yeah, last year was the first year since 2007 that Alabama didn't win at least 10 games. So, losing to Vanderbilt, they're not going to take that long. He's under so much pressure, and that's actually the next segment I want to talk about. Because the coaches, and this doesn't even have to be the SEC, but I want to go over the coaches under the most pressure this season. The reason I put it in the SEC segment is I think a lot of them are from the SEC. So I want to give you the first shot at it, and I'm going to give you a couple names that I think are under the most pressure. So go ahead, Steve.
I mean, your image right there, Brian Kelly in the middle. You got to win. You got to win now at LSU. I think they've given him enough time. He's had an unbelievable amount of talent on the offensive side of the ball year in and year out. He's got one of those top 5 quarterbacks under center this year too. I mean, the amount of receiver talent that has come out under him. He's coached the Heisman Trophy winner. To just continually fumble the bag in big games at LSU, you can't have that. You have to win week in and week out. He got by at Notre Dame because that wasn't as tough of a schedule week in and week out. He played some lollipop games when he was at Notre Dame. And yeah, he went to a national championship. He was a fantastic coach, very deserving of the job at LSU, but you got to win now at LSU. And I think the coach that's not mentioned in there is, my team. I think James Franklin's under a lot of pressure this year. Yeah, they were in the college football playoff last year, but I'll hold this against anybody. Penn State's the best team in college football right now. They're returning everybody. They're going to have a 3-year starter at quarterback. The backfield is probably the best overall, maybe not individually, but with those guys running the football, they got a bunch of transfers in. James Franklin has to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about Penn State a little bit later in the Big Ten segment. Names that I have a few of them. Let me just go through them real quick. So Brent Venables, right? Oklahoma. Listen to this. This is kind of hard to believe. Oklahoma has had losing seasons 2 out of the last 3 seasons. That is not going to fly in Norman, Oklahoma. Mike Gundy, another Oklahoma guy, but Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy, 3-9 last year. They had to restructure his contract to get more NIL money. Doesn't sound like things are going too great there. They're going to have to play Oregon this year, which is going to be a really tough game for them. I could see him being on his way out. Hugh Freeze at Auburn. They're 11-14 in his 2 seasons there. Auburn's going to want better than that. And then Brett Pry, a Penn State guy, as you mentioned, but 6-7 last season, 8th in the ACC. Virginia Tech had higher expectations than that last season. He has not gotten them rolling yet. There's a ton of names. There's a ton of names on this list that we could have added here, but I think those names are notable to pay attention to as the season goes along.
How about Lincoln Riley? Lincoln Riley, they are giving him one of the biggest contracts in college football. He's got access to the private jet, coached the Heisman Trophy winner there that he had recruited at Oklahoma, but they have been underwhelming every single year since he has been there, if not taking a step back every year.
Yep. Luke Fickell, at Wisconsin. There's a bunch of names. I like the USC mention, though. Pay attention to that because, like you said, they've had the talent, but they were even losing guys in the portal this year. That Branch kid who was really talented, I believe went to Georgia, so yep. They're losing guys too. So it's interesting to keep your head on that. I think there's a lot of coaches under pressure this season. Let's talk about the Big Ten. Let's talk about those Penn State and Nittany Lions. You kind of mentioned it, Steve, and I agree with you. From highlighting Penn State, like you said, 4 returning starters on the offensive line: Drew Aller, Singleton, and Allen. The Pena kid last year, 84 receptions, 941 yards, and 9 touchdowns at Syracuse. They also brought in Hudson and Ross at receiver. On defense, Sutton, Zyke Wheatley, Rojas, DeLuca. They are stacked. They brought everybody back. Whereas, look at their schedule, right? 3 cupcakes that you're going to crush. You get Oregon at home. That's a long trip. Then you get Ohio State later in the season, right? But Ohio State, I believe, had 16 or 14 NFL draft picks last season that they have to replace. That's no easy task. That's why I made this title, right? If not then, if not now, when?
That's the question all Penn State people want to know. I believe last year we were the second best team in college football. And I think if Penn State plays in the national championship last year, I think they give Ohio State a run for their money. When they played last year, it was a fantastic game. Penn State needs to get over that hurdle. They haven't beat, Ohio State since I think was it 2015 or 2016. It's been a long time. They need to get over that hurdle. They need to stop being the little brother of the Big Ten to Ohio State, stop being second in command. They need Oregon's coming to Penn State. It's the whiteout. You're going to win your first 3 games. You know that. You need to put the hammer down and make a statement against Oregon and then run the table from there on out. If not now, when is the $1,000,000 question? You have the 5-star quarterback. You have the 5-star running backs. Everybody's coming back. The offensive line is built like no other. The defense is back. You have the linebackers. There isn't a missing piece in Penn State's armor right now. They need to dominate.
And truly, when I know a lot about Penn State because I've been scouting them the last 2 years because that's who we opened up with. Luckily, we don't play them this year. They really don't have a weak spot. And that's been true for the last few years. You could not find a spot that was weak on their team. I mean, you can say a receiver, but even though like Lambert Smith and Trey Wallace are still really representable. So they're going to be fun to watch this year. I think it sets up nicely for them. It'll be interesting to see what teams like Indiana and Nebraska do, right? Indiana went to the CFP last year, but their schedule was kind of weak. Nebraska, year 3 with Matt Rule, so you have to pay attention to them. But until they do it, who knows? But Penn State is going to be favored in most of their games, if not all of them. So they should be, again, a lot of pressure on James Franklin this year to get it done. Let's talk about this. This is the last thing we kind of want to talk about here, and that is the Big Ten versus the SEC. They've definitely have closed the gap, right? With the transfer portal and NIL, it's really even the playing field. Today, do you think the Big Ten is better than the SEC as we sit here in August?
I had this conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine. I think it's the Big Ten now. I think there is not a large gap between the two, but I think the Big Ten has taken over as the premier conference. I mean, the SEC has hung their hat on Georgia. They hung their hat on Alabama for a long time. Texas is now just finally coming in and reaching that level. But if you're going eye for an eye across the board, I just think Penn State has a lot of heavy hitters, and they're in it at the end of the year every year. If the new incoming schools from the Pac-12, UCLA and USC can prove to be, valuable to the Big Ten, I think they're going to continue to surpass the SEC because the SEC is the have and the have-nots. They're not consistent across the board. Auburn has been a joke. Arkansas has been a joke. You know where you're getting out of Kentucky every year. LSU has been underwhelming. Oklahoma, like you said, 2 out of the past 3 years, they've had a losing record. You're not seeing that with the Big Ten right now. Illinois is fantastic. Illinois can win a lot of games. Indiana was in the college football playoff. Iowa, as long as they figure out that there's more than just defense on the field, they're going to be a fantastic team that's going to win 8 or 9 games every year. Your bottom barrel teams, even in the Big Ten, are better than the bottom barrel teams in the SEC, in my opinion, in 2025.
Yeah, I'm still gonna lean towards the SEC a little bit, but if Penn State were to get it done this year and the Big Ten was to claim a 3rd straight national title, I think you would have to make that argument with you're saying, right? But for now, SEC has done it for so long, and it's a close call though. I just don't feel like the SEC has that dominating team that they've had in the past, where you knew like Georgia was like a shoo-in for the national title or Alabama. I think like the SEC is as wide open as it's been. I think in the Big Ten, it's probably realistically a 3-team race between Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon. There's other teams can make some noise, but how realistic is it for them to win the conference title? I don't know. That's going to be a fascinating arms race this year to see, though, who takes hold of that. And that's all I really got, So, Steve, anything before we head out of here?
Just excited for college football to be back. I mean, the upsets, there's nothing better. Everybody that's watching your show, Johnny, they're a Mountaineer fan at heart, but at the end of the day, we're all college football fans, and the college football community is fantastic. Having been a college football guy my whole entire life, the fact that we're here, week 0 is past us, and we're heading into quite possibly the best week 1 we've had in recent memory. I mean, the slate that we have coming next week to be able to spend time with friends, family, and watch college football. Your opening question was, is this the best time of the year? Like, I'm getting hyped just thinking about it. Sit here and talk college football with you and rap about all the great players and things that we have coming up this year. College football season goes by in the blink of an eye, unfortunately, but we all make it a point to sit down and enjoy to watch the games. I hope that your followers are able to get to a lot of games. I hope you're able to get to a game or two this year. I know I'll be in State College for a few of them, hopefully hitting up a couple more. But just super excited to get things going, and I really appreciate you having me on your show, Johnny, and be able to get my opinions out there, and hopefully we get some comments agreeing and disagreeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I told my wife, I told her, listen, don't make any plans for the next like 14 weeks because we're not doing anything. We just got back from Disney. We just had the Chuck E. Cheese birthday party. All right. So we're not doing anything for the next few weeks. All right. So don't make any plans. It was fun. I really appreciate it. We have to do this again, especially as the college football playoff goes. And if West Virginia has a bye week, I wouldn't mind, again, talking some national storylines, kind of revisiting some of these because they're fun. I also think, too, I think that, the college football storylines are way better than the NFL right now. I think the NFL doesn't have that many storylines where like you can make a case for so many in college football. With that being said, it was a fun show. We'll talk to everyone later. Let's go Mountaineers.